and welcome to the MyConsultant.ca show. I'm Sarah Ostapchuk.
And I'm Joshua Pentalaresco.
And we're here to help you with the Canadian immigration process. This show is designed to be a brief way to inform you on Canadian immigration news headlines, immigration policy and program concepts, and introduce you to industry experts.
Our first story for today, ladies and gentlemen, is that the 2022 immigration plan has been released. Canada will welcome up to 390,000 immigrants this year. This number is smaller compared to last year's, which was over 400,000. Multi-year plans are meant to help urban planners prepare economically and socially for the years to come.
Right. I found that really interesting because the plans that are a couple of years in length seemed kind of odd to me, but this makes sense. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people coming into the country. There needs to be preparations.
There's always logistics in every kind of undertaking. Huge undertaking, the huger they are, the more you have to plan. So yeah, multi-year plans are necessary and probably, for anything, I'm not the most organized guy in the world. You'll speak for that. So it's it helps when someone has a plan.
Oh yeah. And here are your weekly PNP draw updates. Ontario issued 1,032 invitations through the Express Entry Skilled Trade stream on January 27th. BC issued 289 invitations under Skilled Worker, International Graduate, and Entry-Level and Semi-Skilled categories on January 25th. And Quebec issued 512 invitations under the Quebec Regular Skilled Worker Program on January 13th.
And finally, last but certainly not least, on January 31st, 2022, Minister Sean Fraser announced that there will be many updates made to the immigration application process to combat long processing times. Some of these measures have already taken place. For example, there are lower wait times for spousal sponsorship applications. There is also a new permanent residence application tracker coming February of the month for spouses and dependents.
Those are a lot of updates being made on top of updates that have already been made, actually.
Well, like we said at the beginning of the show, logistics, like big numbers, big people, lots of planning, requires adjustment. We have more tools than we did 2 years ago. At the same time, things evolve and adjust as well.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot being mentioned in the press release about data analytics and just digitization in general, which is always useful for less complicated applications to just speed up processing times.
And which is the key here, less complicated. Like I said, people like me, organization, not so much.
No, that's okay. That's why I'm here.
That's right. That's why you're here. So this week's concepts in immigrations, it seems to be about exemptions.
Yeah, we're discussing the family class right now. Last week we talked about spousal sponsorship, and there's this other special consideration called the humanitarian and compassionate consideration. And it's something that applicants can look into if they're finding that they're not qualifying under the classes of immigration and they have extenuating circumstances that involve humanitarian and compassionate consideration. It's an interesting way that the government has created this sort of cover for those who kind of fall through the cracks of the legislation.
Sounds very fascinating. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here's this week's Concepts in Immigration.
Hi, and welcome back to Concepts in Immigration. Today we'll be continuing with our discussion of family class immigration. Previously, we mentioned the different classes of immigration: economic, family, and refugee. Last week, we talked about spouse and common law partner sponsorship, which falls under family class. Today, we'll be talking about a special consideration that has been built into the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act for people who do not meet the requirements of these three classes, but for special circumstances, should be still given a permanent residency status. This is called humanitarian and compassionate consideration. So what is the humanitarian and compassionate consideration? Well, each class of immigration has subsections, such as the spouse and common law sponsorship, and each of these has their own sets of requirements. But what do you do if you do not qualify under any of these? You may be eligible to receive permanent residency through humanitarian and compassionate consideration, otherwise known as H&C. HNC gives permanent resident status or permanent resident visas to foreign nationals who cannot qualify in any class in the particular cases where humanitarian or compassionate considerations should be made under subsections A25 and A25.1 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. It is for cases that are deserving of the status but are not covered in the legislation. This consideration is not competing with the Act or regulations for immigration, but rather is a complementary supplementation which supports the objectives of the Act. It is not the same as a refugee status. It can, however, grant admittance to a person who applies under the refugee class who does not qualify. Who qualifies under HNC? There are no specific requirements to receiving HNC because the officer who examines your case must assess all the factors unique to your situation. He or she must take a global approach to the application. Specific humanitarian and compassionate considerations vary from case to case. However, when assessing each case, officers must consider the following: the balance between discretion and consistency, the onus on the applicant, the threshold of proof, inadmissibility, best interests of a child involved, the ability to establish in Canada, and statelessness. This list is not exhaustive. There are other considerations as well. How do you apply? To apply for HNC, you must make a request under subsection 25.1 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. You also must fill out an application for permanent residency, the IMM0008 form, under either the family, economic, or refugee class, and you must pay the processing fee. Some people may be exempt from paying this fee, for example, if you are applying overseas under the refugee class. What are the restrictions? These can include inadmissibilities that cannot be exempted, such as security concerns, crimes against humanity, or organized crime. If you applied for HNC and were denied, you must wait 12 months, which is called the 12-month bar, before reapplying. In some circumstances, the bar can be waived. There are many reasons for an applicant to still be considered inadmissible under HNC. You can find out more at the Canadian government website under Humanitarian and Compassionate Consideration. Canada is a country that prides itself on immigration, and the Humanitarian and Compassionate Consideration is a great example of how the Canadian government strives to be as inclusive and considerate as possible when admitting immigrants. I hope this segment has been informative. If you want more information, all of what was discussed is available on the Government of Canada website. You can also check out MyConsultant.ca for other information relating to the 3 classes of immigration and to talk to a licensed immigration consultant. And now it's time for part 2 of Josh's interview with Lulwa Al Hidiq. Let's join them now.
For part 2 here, so we're going to talk a little bit more, some personal stuff. Like, for example, where are you from, if you don't mind my asking? You sound like you're from the States. Whereabouts?
Actually, no, I'm originally, I always say it's a kind of a big mess, because I was born in Kuwait.
Okay.
But I'm born to a Palestinian dad and a Lebanese mom.
Mm-hmm.
And in Lebanon, women don't have basically rights to grant citizenships to their spouses or kids.
Yeah.
So I was basically stateless all my life. But after the Gulf War, we moved to Lebanon. I finished my university, and I was adamant to leave because I didn't feel I was able to pursue my life there. And Canada was always top in mind. My dad had initially applied to immigrate to Canada, but he didn't embark on that step. He was always afraid of the unknown. And he's like, I remember him asking, can you guarantee me a job? And they'd say, no, you have to go pave your own way. Can you guarantee me this? So my dad wanted guarantees, and I always remembered that there's no guarantees in life. So for me, I wanted a better future for myself. By the time I was married and I already had kids, so I wanted a better life for myself and my children. And my husband and I, we basically left everything, and everyone called us crazy to leave everything and go into the unknown. But we did that, and our kids were babies at the time. So, and it was the best decision we've ever made, because we believe in the value of Canada. Like I had the opportunity to live in the States, and I had a job lined up. I had everything lined up, but I preferred to come to Canada.
Toronto. Okay, so you came to Toronto from Lebanon. That's pretty much, and then you've been there since, I imagine.
Yeah, since we've been here almost 20 years.
Oh,
So no.
here's my question. You seem like somebody that does things kind of like they're led to do certain things. Like, again, people call you crazy for dropping your accounting job or going from Lebanon to Canada, right? I don't. I feel like it's something that you had to do. There's something inside you that kind of just drove it. So, when did you start listening to letting yourself being led to wherever you needed to go? Like, when did you learn how to do that?
I'm very stubborn, so sometimes I may do the otherwise if I'm told. I guess I'm stubborn that way, but I follow what I believe in, and I think, and I always say this, I mean, to my kids, to my clients, you have to follow what you believe in, whether it's a passion for anything, because if you believe in it and you're passionate about it, it's gonna succeed. There's no way, especially in places like Canada, for example, maybe in other, for example, Lebanon, or other places. But if you follow your passion, then there's nothing stopping you. And yeah, I've always been criticized for being a risk taker, but I think life is all about taking risks and trying new things, and this is something that we try to teach our kids, to balance the risks, assess the risks, and try to mitigate whenever possible. But at the same time, nothing is going to come to us on a platter of gold, and we have to work hard for what we want. And to do that, we have to believe in it and do everything possible to get to that goal. So I do believe in that.
And that was my conversation with Lulwa Al Hidiq. I want to thank Lulwa very much for being a part of the show. All right, now let's go back and wrap things up, shall we?
So lots happened today on this show, and it looks like there's a lot going on in February as well.
Yeah, as you told me off the air, there seems to be a perfect storm of things just coming together at once.
Yeah, there's a lot of fast-moving government announcements right now. We had the release of the plan for immigration, and we've got new stuff being updated to application processes. It's a little surprising that they're being so quick with it, but it's great.
Like I said off the air, it's like, well, sometimes things happen. Like we get these perfect storms where everything just comes together perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I mean, with a lot of the plans and a lot of the headlines this week is, there has been an adjustment with the tools we've come up with in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter where you think where the pandemic is going, some of these tools are here to stay. They're not going to go away when it's over. And so I think these tools are here to help us at least be more efficient, at least theoretically. So.
Well, absolutely. And like you mentioned too, off air, we are an example of remote working. We don't live in the same province. So, the fact that we can even do this is great. It's a positive that's coming out of the pandemic. And I definitely think it'll continue well past the pandemic.
I agree. For more information about the topics covered in this show, please visit MyConsultant.ca, where you can explore up-to-date news on important issues, read in-depth articles explaining immigration and citizenship, and seek answers to your most pressing questions from a vibrant community of authorized immigration and citizenship consultants. Also, be sure to check in the MyConsultant.ca LinkedIn page. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Joshua Pantelaresco.
And I'm Sarah Ostapchuk.
Aiding and assisting you to come to Canada.
We'll see you next week.